morning, good evening, good afternoon. John Robertson was a Zimbabwean economist and banker of renown. In the 1970s, he took a reform proposal to Ian Smith, Prime Minister of Rhodesia. The proposal was a very simple one. Give the rural peasants of Zimbabwe the right to own land, title deeds to the land. That will give that land economic value. That will also give the people themselves the confidence that it is theirs. They can use it as collateral. And they can use it with confidence to invest in building better homesteads for themselves, improve that piece of land. It may be just a few acres. But the important thing is it has given it commercial value. Ian Smith rejected the proposal. For Ian Smith, the argument was simple. Give these blacks the title deeds and the value and the step on the economic ladder. The next thing they would be demanding is political rights. That was the one thing he was not prepared to give. So he turned the proposal down. A few years later, after independence, John Robertson took the same proposal to Prime Minister Robert Mugabe. This was now in majority-ruled Zimbabwe. Mugabe rejected the proposal for the same reasons. He did not want to give the blacks in the rural areas title deeds because he did not want them to have the economic independence either for selfish political reasons. This has been at the heart of our problem in Zimbabwe. We have the ruling elite who have forced millions of our people into poverty for their own selfish reasons. Here is Margaret Dongo admitting to that very point.
They have wrong priorities, especially the current government. How can you go and build an airport which services a few people, and the majority are the elite and the so-called investors? Look at the rural. I made you come to interview me because I wanted you to have the experience of the roads that we are using. If we go today to our hospital there, you feel pity with that's a hospital in a rural area. If we go to our clinic, you feel pity. We have no piped water here. Do you know the reason why the rural people vote for Zanu PF? One, they're intimidated. Two, the policy is that the rural people should remain poor and subservient to the government. They should remain poor because if they remain poor, they continue singing the song for their master. This is why these people have been impoverished. It's for a reason. Because at the moment, if you economic empower these people, they'll go out of hand. Zanu PF will never have control over them.
There's come as no surprise at all that Zanu PF has used aid as a means of political control. This is a very familiar sight to many people in Zimbabwe. Every year, more so during elections, the people are given food, aid, and agricultural inputs, and all manner of assistance. And Zanu PF has retained control over the distribution of all the aid, even if it is relief aid. A few years ago, the country had a problem with Cyclone Ida. One of the donors, they wanted to come in and help the victims. And the regime insisted that they should give all the aid to the party and the party would distribute it. They said no. And the party was so insistent on that in the end, the donor had to withdraw. A very familiar story. Zanu PF would not allow anybody else to distribute that aid. So you end up with this situation where aid is used for political reasons. The aid is now distributed, even if it's from a donor or from the state, it's distributed under Zanu PF flag. The party has control over it. The donor or the taxpayer may pay for it, but Zanu PF wants to have the credit for distributing it. And the second aspect is that the party is using that aid as a carrot for its supporters and a stick to those who dare not support the party. Because if you do not support the party, you'll be denied some of that aid. You'll be singled out. You get the aid if you've got a Zanu PF ticket or party card. Which becomes totally meaningless. But that is the reality in Zimbabwe. It is tragic that we've come to that. Here is Professor Lumumba talking to that very point as well. The problems of leaders abusing or keeping the majority or the ordinary people poor for their own selfish political ends.
Kept in the most profound ignorance If I step it down into English, it simply means that the safety of the leader demands that the people be kept in poverty. And that is what happens in Africa. In Europe and America, during elections, they go around kissing babies and appearing to be nice. In Africa, they go around distributing rice and maize, appearing to be nice. In other words, the typical politician impoverishes the people so that they may become attractive to them. And in order to be attractive, you must appear to have money. And this is why those in the political arena in many African countries have an insatiable appetite for things. Primitive accumulation of things is the rule. A friend of mine once corrected me when I said that in Africa there is intelligence in theft. What we see in Africa is looting and theft on an industrial scale.
Sorry about that. We seem to be having some problems with the sound there. But the point here is that in Zimbabwe in particular, the regime has kept the rural people particularly deliberately poor for its own political ends. They are not allowed to have title deeds to the land because that will give them a foot on the economic ladder. It's tragic that the party is the one that is holding the people to ransom. That is one of the sad things about Africa. How the leaders themselves have become the new oppressors. It is normal during elections for the rural people to get this various food aid, even if they don't want it. It's part of the campaigning. And in most of those cases, it's actually wasted. Because more often than not, the rainy season does not follow the Zanu PF campaign program. So the rallies may be held way after the rains have started. And yet you find people are still being given seed or fertilizer, which should have been given months earlier. But because the campaign period did not allow it, it's being given late, and it's too late to be used. And it cannot be kept for the next season. So a lot of it is wasted. The amount of wastage is amazing. But what really matters is that people should be kept deliberately poor for selfish political ends. In Zimbabwe, the rural people constitute as much as 60% of the voters. And Zanu PF, ever since the country's independence, has always maintained that the rural areas is its stronghold. The opposition have found that if you go to campaign in the rural areas, you do it at your own risk. The voters themselves know that attending an opposition rally could be a costly thing, because it is common that as soon as the opposition have left, you will have visitors who would be asking you who was there, what were they talking about, what do they want. You have, in some cases, to take your visitors to the party chairman and introduce them that I've got my uncle who is visiting me and he will be here for so many days, particularly during election campaign periods. And it will be very unwise to wear opposition regalia in some of these hot areas. Many people, particularly in the election of 2008, were punished for that. The democratic reforms that should have been implemented during the GNU to end this political oppression failed to implement any reforms. And to be quite honest, the opposition have abandoned the rural people. The opposition consider the urban centers as their strongholds, and they've been quite content with winning seats in those strongholds, and leave Zanu PF to do as it damn well pleased in the rural areas. The opposition have abandoned the rural voters. This is the tragedy of Africa. Zimbabwe will never really have free, fair, and credible elections until the rural electorate are freed from the stranglehold of Zanu PF. That is the reality. That is the truth. It is sad, very sad indeed, that we know the solution to ending some of the poverty that has held back the country. And yet we cannot apply it because, for political reasons, those in power will feel that applying it will threaten their own hold on power. John Robertson was correct. It is actually not rocket science at all to see why he was correct. It's common sense. You give these people title deeds to the land. They can now develop it with confidence, knowing fully well that whatever I invest in that piece of land, I can recover it. Either I can leave it to my children or my grandchildren, or if I should decide to move away, I can sell that as a going concern. Right now, in the rural areas. That's why they're called tribal trust lands. No one has got any title deeds. And because of that, even if you build a decent house, if you should want to move, selling that house is near impossible because you can only sell the structure itself. The surrounding yard could be given to somebody else by the headman. Who would want that? Who would want just the house and the land around it does not belong to you? It belongs to somebody else. In fact, it's a way of pressurizing you to leave. It is a pity that 45 years after independence, we still have a situation where millions, and I'm talking of millions here, of ordinary Zimbabweans, are denied the right to own the one thing that could mean something to them, land. They are not asking for the vast farms that the politicians have allocated to them for themselves. They are only asking for a few acres on which their mud hut is built. And yet they are denied that right. I can't think of anything more outrageous than that. I hope someday sanity will return to the land. And in honor of the late John Robertson, his plan can finally be allowed to go ahead. It's a common sense plan. Let's give the rural people title deeds to the land, even a few acres on which their mud hut stands, and give them a foot onto the economic ladder. And hope that that will also lead to political power. They deserve the right to a meaningful say in the governance of the country. That should not be negotiable. And yet in Zimbabwe, it is. That is truly tragic. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.